Welcome to Technado with Don Pizzette, featuring sysadmin expert Don Pizzette, security specialist Daniel Lowry, and Peter.
Hello and welcome to Technado with Don Pizzette. I'm your host, Peter Van Rysdam, and I am joined as always by Don Pizzette. Don, how you doing?
I am doing swell. We got some great news lined up today. Some really interesting articles. I'm looking forward to our Who Got Pwned or Dope.
A lot of chip stuff. A lot of stuff about silicon and
big changes going on for Intel. We'll talk. I don't want to ruin it now. We'll talk about it later.
This is called a tease. We're getting the people excited about the future. And Daniel, how are you today?
Interested. I'm really looking forward to a couple of the articles we got going on today about some most used vulnerabilities and things like that. Really interesting. And of course, talking with our guest as well. Seems to be a really interesting person.
Nice segue. Thank you. And we are joined today by our special guest, John Morgan, who is the CEO of Confluera, which is a cloud cybersecurity detection and response company. Did I get all that right, John?
You sure did. Thanks so much for having me.
Nailed it. All right. Pretty proud of that. I think I've got a fly flying around me here, too. Things are just falling apart here. But John, we appreciate you taking the time to join us. And you're out in the heart of things, right, in Silicon Valley?
Yeah, that's right. Born and raised here, so seen a lot of changes and in the thick of it for sure. Although, as you may have heard, a lot of people are moving out of California. So I'm still here.
You got to follow Elon over to Texas, and who else? Somebody else went to Texas.
Joe Rogan went to Texas, I think.
Didn't Oracle move too recently?
Well, where were they?
New Mexico? They've got places all over. Like they have a big.
I thought they moved to headquarters.
Oh,
really?
Yeah,
that's a tax haven.
No, I mean actually, John, your boots on the ground over there. I've heard different stories. Some people say that there is this huge exodus happening from Silicon Valley, and then other people say no, that's being overstated in the media. I mean, you're a CEO. Obviously, you've got employees. Have you seen what's your impression? Are you seeing people leave?
Well, I'll give you the first indicator of, is there a huge exodus occurring? And you would look at the housing prices. They're not falling. They're continuing to rise. So there is more movement going out than we've seen in the past, but we haven't seen a mass exodus like that.
Well, I guess one of the questions, too, will be how many companies maintain a work from home after the pandemic versus, say, come back, because if you could make Silicon Valley money, but not pay Silicon Valley rent somewhere.
That would be awesome.
Yeah, that would be pretty good.
Yeah.
All right, so John is hiring.
It's definitely a choice now. People are making it, and they're probably not making great friends when they say they're from California. But
well, let's get to know a little bit more about John and his company and his history in our first segment, which is rapid fire questions.
Who do you work for?
What's new?
Who are you?
What's happening?
What's wrong with you?
All right, John, in this segment, what we're going to do is kind of rotate around the room here and rapidly throw questions at you. You'll see a timer on the right side of your screen, and with each question, you'll have approximately 1 minute to answer it. If you take too long, Peter will buzz you like that, and we'll move on to the next question, and we're going to start off with Peter.
So this month, we're kind of focusing here on getting started in IT and kind of understanding different people's journeys into IT and how we can help people get started there. But I'm curious about your journey because you're kind of on that executive side now. And I looked back and I was like, oh, no, he actually did start, as an engineer doing, writing code and things like that. So tell us what got you into that originally and how did you start your IT career?
Yeah, so for me early on, it was definitely security, to be specific. I mean, I love to learn how things work. As you noted, I started out that way. And you look at security, attackers have to exploit the technology and exploit how people work in order to do their deeds. And so in order to defend cybersecurity, you've got to learn how things work. So just a great natural fit there. And from there, it progressed into a passion to help customers and provide positive business outcomes.
All right, let's take a minute and talk about Confluera. I'll admit I wasn't familiar with the organization before, but I know you're active in the cybersecurity space. Can you give us a bit of an overview of what your company does?
Yeah, so Confluera, we're an advanced cyber attack detection and response solution. We're specifically built for cloud and modern application architectures. We're lucky enough, we've been recognized by Forbes and others as being a top 20 cybersecurity, company to watch this year. But we've got a platform with a unique approach where we actually have reduced the amount of time that it takes to get enough context to stop an attack before major damages occur. So you can see the attack in real time. and provide preventative measures. So that's kind of a high level of what we do. It's really key, though, is to make sure that we do this. We provide the solution with, without requiring as many highly trained personnel. That's one of the big issues in the industry today. So that's a little bit about what we do.
Well, John, I'm a little worried about you because, that cloud thing's just a fad and it's going to go the way of the dodo any month now, really quickly. So I'm really pulling for you. But that said, you did recently release your cloud extended detection and response solution. Well, what makes this product unique from its competitors?
Yeah. So first, let's talk about a little bit about the problem we're solving. There's kind of two. One is the average time to detect and respond to an advanced attack today is still 6 to 9 months. It's despite all the technologies and all the things you've heard in security. That's far too long. The damage is done, right? So our differentiated storyboard capability really provides the most advanced and automated creation of what the attacker is doing in real time, so you can do something about it, including attacker lateral movement and other capabilities there. But we also solve this for the cloud. So in the cloud today, one of the big issues is visibility and how do you know what's actually happening in your environment? So taking this advanced storyboard technology that we have with this great attacker visibility and mitigation capability and make sure that it solves the problem of detection and response, in the cloud. So that's what we call CXDR, for Cloud Extended Detection and Response. It's really a purpose-built, cloud capability detection and response solution.
So I don't want this to count as my question, but how old of a company is this?
About 3 years.
About 3 years.
So started in 2018, kind of came out of stealth in 2019.
Gotcha. So you're still definitely in that startup phase. So what is the roadmap for you guys? I saw on LinkedIn that you guys were hiring, so I know it's growing. Or is it to build some different products as well, or kind of grow the existing ones?
Yeah, we're definitely growing. I mean, we're going to continue to answer the need of next generation lower noise detection and response solutions specifically for cloud. We do have customers that are hybrid and on-premise workloads as well, but that's kind of where, as you mentioned, that's where a lot of growth is for cloud. We're going to keep focusing on it. Now, we are built on an XDR platform, so we believe that CXDR and the cloud detection response is kind of the first real application of an XDR next generation platform. So we'll go from solving cloud to broadening to a general XDR platform.
That makes sense. So what is the attack vector that keeps you up at night?
Yeah, so due to increasing complexity and computing environments, we have a philosophy at Confluera, which is that if an attacker wants in, it's really the only thing that's stopping them is motivation at this point. And that's because of supply chain vulnerabilities you don't know of, human insiders, et cetera. There's always a way in. And it's really, so generally that's our philosophy. And that's why we create a solution that basically is, hey, detect it as fast as you can and stop it, because it'll happen if you have something valuable. That said, if I think about what keeps me up at night from an attack vector perspective, it's definitely the cloud. There's no question about it. And that's why we're spending a lot of our energy creating this CXDR platform.
Well, that makes sense, and that's actually a fantastic segue to our next segment. So I'm glad that was the answer. Otherwise, I wouldn't know how I would transition. So while we have you here and you're an expert on the subject, we want to talk about security challenges with cloud computing. We have an article that is from VentureBeat.com that says public cloud security is, quote, just barely adequate, according to experts. And obviously, you guys are making steps to help that get beyond just barely adequate. But why are we so far behind in this area, do you think?
Yeah, well, just barely adequate. Translate that to handle basic security. Translate that to handle basic attackers. Right? That's not going to be good enough. Businesses are moving fast. They need to reap the benefits of the cloud. There's no question about that. When it comes to business agility. OpEx spending models and really better user experiences. So they're moving quickly. That's the way security usually occurs. It gets pulled in. And so that's what we're seeing. But the cloud it's different, right? It's got many other vectors. You need specialized training. You can't take your traditional security methods and just port them over. Although that does happen, but it's not going to be adequate. I mean, we see, if you look at all these cloud kind of news that come out, I kind of see at least 3 different areas that are key points that kind of come out in here. One is lack of visibility in the cloud. 2 is, hey, I'm in multiple clouds. How do I solve for that? And 3 is who's protecting me? Is it the cloud provider? Or do I need to do it? How does that work? So these are kind of 3 themes that we see, in the cloud.
Now, I know a lot of people do get confused over that shared responsibility model. They think that if they put something in the cloud, that it's being secured by the cloud provider, when in reality, there's just this like small subset of things the cloud provider is actually securing, and the rest of it's left up to us.
What?
So,
Hold on. What?
there we go. Yeah, breaking news.
Daniel's got some work to do. Yeah.
Man, I'm going to bounce just for a minute.
Well, that's what's led to the articles we reported on where somebody has an exposed S3 bucket or something of that nature. So when I think of like you're talking about extended detection and response, I think of EDR, which is really endpoint detection and response. So here it's I guess the endpoint is basically in the cloud, but how are you able to monitor non-server based types of resources, things like an S3 bucket, where an S3 bucket's the underlying operating system is completely hidden from us? How are you able to monitor and identify weaknesses there?
Yeah, it's a good question. So if I kind of back up a little bit into kind of what we do in the cloud, it is a totally different, and what you're talking about is a different signal source, right? And the reality is that the cloud has many different types of signal sources. It's not just the workload, it's the control plane, data plane, third-party services that have to be monitored. And so the cloud is just ultimately very different, not just from the signal perspective, but actually how you detect what you detect with those signals and how you actually respond. Workloads can be ephemeral or dynamic. Thousands could come up and down. There's that multi set of layers with S3 buckets and others that has that shared ownership model. You've got more modern architectures like containers and Kubernetes environments, higher scale, multi-cloud. The list goes on what the differences are. And we're seeing lots of solutions kind of retooling. They may have been built for traditional security, environments, and they're kind of retooling for the cloud. But fundamentally, it's a very different set of circumstances. So when you're looking at things like you said, like S3 and other things in the environment, fortunately, the cloud does provide quite a bit of API accessibility for understanding kind of who's touching what. There's also a really high central importance on identity and identity access management and understanding privileges within that environment. So all of those kinds of signals are used to get a picture of actually what your risk is and what runtime security challenges you have.
Are you able to do any kind of like detection when it comes to when you have like a multi-tenant environment? Let's say that, Bob's, cat food over here doesn't do the best security, but you're sharing, tenancy with him in your cloud environment, and an attacker makes their way into Bob's stuff and they want to try to jump into different areas. Is your solution able to detect and or prevent any of that?
So we're not necessarily detecting if it went into somebody else's, third party, company, Bob's company in that case, and your Sally's company, and whether somebody went from one to the other. But we are showing lateral movement and we call vertical movement, meaning if there's an attacker in the environment, and they're even doing lateral movement between containers, or even going from things like containers to hosts, which might call an escape. We're tracking these kinds of things. So we're looking at actors in the environment, whether they came from Bob's area or vice versa. We're looking at the attacker and how they're traversing. That's one of the properties of the storyboard technology we have, which is showing not just lateral movement, but also this vertical movement, and even things like low and slow attacks. As you know, attackers often, they hide behind time. They just use time as their friend and try to create so much noise that their signal's obfuscated. And so those are the things that we're actually tracking in the lateral movement side of things.
Now, over the last year, we've had a couple of high visibility outages, right? Microsoft Azure had outages, AWS had outages. And so I'm hearing people more and more start talking about multi-cloud, that, hey, if I'm going to deploy in the cloud, I don't want to be beholden to one cloud provider. Let's spread the service across more than one. But one of the big warnings that I hear alongside of that is that it's a lot harder to manage security when you're implementing two different environments. You deal with people that are building up these cloud infrastructures on a regular basis. Are you seeing people go multi-cloud, and what are the security concerns around that?
Yeah, we're absolutely seeing companies go multi-cloud. And while it's traditionally thought that the smaller the company, the less they do it. And while there's a tendency that for to be true, we're still seeing companies, even mid-market sized companies, smaller organizations that are utilizing clouds for different reasons. They may have applications that just have a better cost structure or better capabilities in one cloud versus the other. And also they have challenges where, as the company gets larger, sometimes it's not even a conscious effort. They just they don't even know how many clouds they've got spun up, because there's just projects that get spun into these things. But some of the challenges with that, certainly with multi-cloud, and that looks to be here to stay. It's very rare to I run in a company that's only in one cloud. If they are, they're looking at utilizing another one. But some of the challenges are just, one relates to cybersecurity personnel. I mean, think about it's hard enough to learn one technology stack, but if you're in multiple clouds with different tools and capabilities, all of a sudden you have more burden on your already burdened team. Misconfiguration, obviously, that's one of the biggest issues when it comes to security in general. And then just operating tools and getting a bird's eye view of what's happening across your different environments becomes very, very difficult. So those are some of the challenges that we see. But again, the trend is here, and I don't see it going away.
Very cool. Well, we appreciate your insight on all that. It's definitely someone, right there in the front line. So you mentioned the CXDR launch recently. Is that something that's fully out, or is that in beta? People can go get that now?
Yeah, no, it's out, and we've done a few things. So as we're, we've just launched that, and we're really also proud to be a Black Unicorn Top 10 Cybersecurity Startup Award that we just got this week, and we're marching forward. But some of the things in the CXDR that we've been really pushing forward is really how to adapt this attack visibility that we discussed, and adapt it for cloud native environments. So we've just released some things like more cloud native storyboarding capabilities, where we're showing more lateral movement across containers, across control planes, data planes, network, Kubernetes environments, and really making sure that we're giving the visibility of the attack in real time there. We're also doing things like, more integrations with cloud native, like AWS guard duty and load balancing capabilities in the cloud as signal sources for us. There's things we're doing, like, it's really important. So we're a runtime detection and response solution to figure out exactly if you've been attacked and what to do about it. But there's a whole generation of shift left technologies that are very important before runtime even starts. And we're integrating with those as well. We view those as signal, by the way. If it's vulnerability or configuration posture management, the things, we view those as signal. That's really important, helps us determine risk of your runtime environment. So these are some of the capabilities that we've just launched, and related to the announcements that folks have seen.
So to back up just a touch, I know Unicorn is a company that's got $1 billion valuation. What is a Black Unicorn?
That's actually an award that we were given this week as a top 10 cybersecurity startup that is affiliated or related to, it's actually distributed by Cyber Defense Magazine, but it's related in time to Black Hat, given this is Black Hat Week right now, 2021.
Yeah, it's definitely going on right now. Are you guys doing anything there at the moment?
Yeah, we've got a great booth, virtual booth. Somebody can go there, download any of the latest material that we have, learn about the company, talk to someone at Confluera. And we're obviously continuing to launch the CXDR platform and overall solution space for our customers.
Yeah, the day this podcast comes out is actually the last day of Black Hat, so you can definitely still get on there and chat with the guys there. And if you want to find out more later, you can head to the website, confluera.com, confluera.com, for those of you just listening. But John, we want to thank you for taking the time with us today. We really appreciate it. I know you're a busy guy.
Hey, thanks so much. My pleasure.
Yeah, sounds good. Well, we're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back and talk about the news that Don and Daniel were mentioning. So stick with us. We'll be right back after this on Technado with Don Pizzette.
How do IT leaders stay on top of their game with the IT Pro TV webinar series? Twice per month, IT Pro TV presents a webinar on current topics in the IT world.
what are some of the key things we should be doing in our organization to make sure that we're prepared for disasters and that...
So what do you say we go ahead and get started with today's topic, how to train your end users to
threats. So we're going to talk about some of the major things that you need to do to help keep your people safe while they're working remote.
You can catch IT Pro TV webinars live or watch on demand when your schedule permits. See them all. Visit itpro.tv/webinars today.
All right, welcome back to Technado with Don Pizzette. Thank you so much, John Morgan, for joining us and making me even more scared of the cloud than I normally am. And I don't know, do you guys feel better about the cloud? Worse? Same?
I'm a security guy, so I was aware.
So you knew it was just barely adequate?
Yeah.
Well, it'll get better.
Sure it will.
It's an evolving thing. There's a lot more to monitor, so companies are having to catch up, and that's where it's a great time to be a cybersecurity startup because there's so much new stuff to secure.
A lot of stuff out there, and there's going to be more stuff tomorrow.
There will.
And then the stuff you were learning to secure yesterday will become irrelevant, and you'll have to.
Start.
It's a fun game.
Yeah. Job security.
Yeah.
Wanted to let you know about something we are doing now. We gave away a bunch of Technado shirts back when we did that 200th episode with Network Chuck a few months back, but wouldn't you know, we still have a warehouse full of them. And so what we wanted to start doing was if you send in a viewer mail, if you go over to technado.com, there's a form you can fill out and send us your comments and let us know, if you agree with us, disagree with us, have a story idea you want to share. If we read that on the air, we will send you a link for a free Technado shirt and sticker. Let's give stickers too.
Sure.
Yeah, why not?
I'm going to suggest funny anecdotes about us.
Yeah, if you say something offensive, tell us, why you think Daniel's stupid.
Can I write my own?
Yeah. I gave you a shirt already.
Daniel is dumb.
I already gave you a shirt. But go ahead and send those in, technado.com, and if we read them on the air, we'll get you out a shirt. So, all right, well, let's get to the news. We've got a lot to get to today, and our first article comes from hardware.slashdot.org. Google will abandon Qualcomm and build its own smartphone processors this year. So, Don, I was curious when I saw this headline. Does this have anything to do with the the supply chain issues that people are having, or is this just them saying, hey, we want to manage the supply chain top to bottom?
So this is not so much about supply chain as it is the bottom line, the dollar, right? So Qualcomm has been the standard processor in Android phones for a long time. Their Snapdragon processors are what we find in most Android phones. There's exceptions, right? Like with Samsung, where they use the Exynos processor overseas. But even Samsung here in the US, they use Snapdragons. They use the Qualcomm processors. Well, Google has announced that they are developing their own internal system on a chip. And they're not starting from scratch because they already had one with their Tensor units that were originally designed for machine learning and AI projects that they were dealing with. Well, now they're going to, they haven't actually said if it's that same chip that's being evolved to work into mobile or if it's an all-new chip with the same name. Like, remember, the Microsoft Surface we have today is not the same thing as the Microsoft Surface.
The table.
Right, yeah, it's a big difference.
The thing was kind of cool.
That was cool. We had one of those at my old company.
Did you really?
Until somebody sat on it. I kid you not.
Nice.
Yeah, Gorilla Glass doesn't protect from that?
No, not this guy.
So what it does, though, is it shows that we are ushering in a new era of technology, and I thought it was worth talking about here. In the past, people like me that bought software, like I bought software 30 years ago, and I still have it on my shelf. You can actually see it in my office. Like, I've got my copy of Microsoft Bob, and I knew that I could whip up a virtual machine and throw that software in there and still run that software today, right? Mm-hmm. I can run it as long as I want. But now that processor architectures are changing, now that old software doesn't run anymore. And so this is kind of like a new era of computing. And as companies start to create their own processors, it creates some challenges for developers. Now, it's being overcome because even in the case of Google, they are using the ARM feature set. So if you're used to developing in an ARM environment, that'll run on top of their Tensor processors, just like it will under Apple's M1s, right? The hardware is very different, but the language you speak to it is the standard ARM language that people are used to. So I think that, ARM isn't going away anytime soon. If NVIDIA can pull off their acquisition of it, that's all hung up at the courts right now. But it's not going away anytime soon. But Intel and AMD, boy, they're in some real hot water here because they've been fighting each other for so long, and they're both in danger of becoming irrelevant now.
Yeah, because Apple was the other one that went away recently.
Yep, Apple's already done it, and now Google is working on it. And mobile devices, like I was just telling somebody about this.
Yeah.
Last Black Friday, during the big after Thanksgiving sale, it was the first time in history that over half of online sales were placed via mobile devices instead of computers.
Really?
So the average person at home is more likely to be using a mobile device on an ARM processor.
So my wife uses her phone to do everything. She is loath to pick up a laptop and do something. She's like, oh, it's just so much easier on my phone. I'm like, I would rather try to solve 6 Rubik's Cubes blindfolded in a tank full of sharks than use my phone to do stuff.
Yeah. Well, I guess it's what you're used to. I mean, you spend all day at a screen this size, going down to one smaller would feel foreign.
Yeah.
If that's what she's on all day.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, but I mean, when's the last time you had to clean malware off your wife's phone?
Never.
Or when's the last time a update failed?
Not that it doesn't exist, right? That it doesn't happen.
Far less frequent.
And the more that it becomes prevalent that people are using it, the more prevalent those things will become. So, I mean, we'll start seeing that. But, yeah, my phone is more of I don't have a laptop in front of me and I need to get on the internet for X, Y, or Z. Yeah. Then I run to my phone. Typically, I use my phone as a phone.
I think for the average citizen out there, I don't know. I just watched Starship Troopers. That's why I'm saying citizen now.
Would you like to know more?
So for the average citizen who put in 2 years of service so they could become a citizen.
Service ensures citizenship, Don.
For them, mobile is a better experience. And so now when we see things like Google's own processors and Apple's own processors, that we're going to see things drift away from what we're used to. It's a brave new world.
Exciting.
What will that mean for me, the dinosaur?
Until the bugs attack.
Yeah.
Okay, boomer, getting your laptop.
Frankly, Don, I find the idea of a bug that thinks offensive.
You captured that really well.
Yeah, I've seen that movie once or twice.
Yeah.
All right, our next article stays in the processor world, but is from tomshardware.com. Itanium waves goodbye as Intel delivers last shipments of now forgotten processor family. IA64 is no more.
Tear.
Long live x86. And I got to say, they say now forgotten. I never knew it. So I just
you
met
can't forget what you don't know.
I just met it and it's already gone.
Yeah.
That's
well,
a
Poor
shame.
thing.
64-bit processors are pretty standard today. Even inexpensive devices like the Raspberry Pi ship with a 64-bit processor. But it wasn't always like that. And in the late, well, I would say it's actually the early 1990s was when Sun Microsystems started doing 64-bit SPARC processors, which were really expensive. Intel saw it as the writing on the wall, knew that we needed to move to 64-bit, and they created their Itanium brand of processors. They were the first Intel 64-bit processors. So up until then, everything was x86 or 32-bit processors, and here was their 64-bit IA. They call it 64-IA. Well, it flopped. Big time. So it was expensive. The performance wasn't great. The software support was frustrating. It just didn't make it. So you saw it in some big data centers, but that was about it. It never made it to consumer devices at all. So I'm not surprised Peter hasn't heard of it because none of his devices, it wasn't even an option. But if you were purchasing servers in the early 2000s, Itanium was out there quite a bit. Well, it flopped, and AMD's solution actually won out. They actually did good software support on it, and they showed performance improvements. They were able to address all the memory they were supposed to address, and that's why the 64-bit standard we use for Windows and operating systems like Linux is called AMD 64 when you install it, not x86. And so sometimes you'll see like x86_64, but it's actually the AMD 64 feature set that's being used there. Well, the Intel Itanium didn't actually completely go away until this week. So this is it. The last Itanium processor has been manufactured, and that ship has sailed. And
snatch them up while you can, right?
just highlights like Intel has had a bad run of it for the last decade.
They really have.
Yeah.
Every time we do an Intel or like a processor story, Intel's in there just struggling hard.
They
trying to get 5 nanometers. They can only get 7. They're drinking themselves to death.
And even their 7 nanometer stuff is not at the yield rate it's supposed to be at. And TSMC is already saying, well, we're working on our 2 nanometer.
Yeah.
Good
How
luck.
you doing over there, Intel?
So, the chip leader, and their new CEO even said it, like, Intel has got to be better at creating processors than I forget what they call it, like a lifestyle company. They're talking about
Yeah.
Apple. Like, Apple shouldn't be able to come out of the blue and make a better processor than us, but they did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oops.
Well, you better get it on lockdown over there at the Intel factory. What can I say?
All right. So, yeah, sell that Intel stock. That's the takeaway here. And now let's head over to CNBC.com for our next article. Amazon hit with $887 million fine by European privacy watchdog. And that translates to 746 million euro.
Yes.
Wow. That's a lot.
You know,
Wow.
What now? Is this a GDPR violation?
It is a GDPR violation, and that's why I brought this one in, because several years ago, I'm pretty sure it was you and I, Peter. I don't
Back
think
when
were
you
on
violated GDPR.
Oh, yeah, every day. So
He just read a list of names out on the show. It's weird.
let's find patterns in Social Security numbers. So we talked about it back then when GDPR was going live, and companies were really worried. Like, what if I'm not fully compliant on day one? And one of the things that I said was, you should try. But if you're not, the penalties are written into GDPR, but it hasn't actually gone before the courts yet. Nobody's been walloped with a big fine, and that GDPR is really targeted to the massive companies that abuse personal data, which is really Google, Facebook, Microsoft, a couple of people like that. Really focused on Google and Facebook. That's really who GDPR was hitting. Well, fast forward to today. It's been 3 years since GDPR has been active. We've all been kind of working around it. And finally, we see the first big hit, and I'm kind of caught by surprise. I didn't expect it to be Amazon, but it was. So Amazon.
Who
has
was
been
your
hit.
call, Don?
Facebook.
Facebook was your.
That seemed like the no-brainer.
Just the easy win.
And I still think we'll see more out of Facebook.
No, give them time.
because-
Give them
yeah, but with Amazon, this is almost $1 billion, like very close, a huge fine. And remember, under GDPR, they can charge you up to
4%.
20 million or 4%
yeah.
of your annual
Global right,
revenue. Yeah.
Revenue, yeah, right.
Whichever is greater.
Do the Amazon C levels just stand around and go, well, I got 300 million.
Yeah, what do you got in your pocket?
You're light. You're only carrying $10 million.
Jeff Bezos had to cancel one of his next trips to space.
Oh goodness.
Yeah. So
is that guy ever going to catch a break?
I know it's got to be hard.
It does sound like a ton of money. It probably isn't a ton of money to Amazon, but I'm sure they don't want to pay out $887 million.
So I think they make $100 billion a year.
Yeah.
So they'll be okay.
They'll probably pull.
They'll be
through.
all right.
Yeah.
But they'll fight it. I'm sure they'll fight
They'll
it.
definitely fight it. It will go up through the courts, and we'll see what happens. There's a number of outcomes that could happen. One, they could just pay it. Two, they could get it reduced significantly. They say that they followed all the rules, that they did not do the things they're being accused of, so it could go away completely.
Sounds like somebody that violated GDPR would say.
It is.
Well, you know the other guys. You know Facebook, Microsoft. They're all watching this. in the back
with
going,
bated breath.
Oh, these terrible guys. But are they going to make them pay that?
Yeah, can you? This is not going to be real.
And
right?
they're dealing with their antitrust stuff too, and so
Oh, man.
we'll have to see. This will be one to watch to see what happens. It'll take years to play out. Remember the Microsoft monopoly trials that went on for like 6 years?
Yeah.
That's how this will be. But it'll be interesting because now we actually get to see what it's like when GDPR is applied.
There will be some precedents set, I would imagine, at this point, because that's their whole thing, right? Like, this hasn't really happened before in this way, and now we're going to get into the court and start digging into the thing on how something about how ads are generated for end users. Really interesting, and how that's interpreted by those courts. I got a feeling things ain't going to go their way. I don't know. That's just my gut instinct.
There is one scenario. It's extremely unlikely, but it's possible that Amazon could just look at Europe and say, well, if you're just going to randomly charge us $880 million from every now and then it's not worth it for us to do business there. They could flip up the double birds and walk right out of Europe and just say, that's it. We're not selling in Europe anymore.
They cue the Beastie Boys or something, right?
they could do that.
Meanwhile, AWS is a separate company in that regard.
It's still under the umbrella. I don't know how the suit certainly applied to the retail portion of Amazon, not necessarily the AWS side, but it's all under one holding company. So I don't know which one it applied to.
Maybe they just up the price of Prime like €10 a year each and be like, hey, it's coming out of your pocket. But it's hard to plead, I need help when you did just go to space. I think it would be a cool move though if Bezos just like takes off in his rocket
Yeah.
and like lands, the rocket over there in Great Britain's like, I brought your cash.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm here to pay my bill.
Here it is.
In pennies.
That would be a big baller move. I hope he does.
And then a giant orb of copper comes from space. Destroys half of Europe.
Yeah. I've got this asteroid that's full of diamonds.
Yes. There's your money.
If anybody's going to do it, Jeff Bezos. He is like as close to a James Bond villain as we have ever had.
He really is.
Is he more a Bond villain or like Iron Man kind of like billionaire who, has a...
Nah, he's not Iron Man. That's more like Elon Musk.
He's
Elon Musk.
Yeah. No superpowers. He's just...
No.
Yeah.
Elon sent a roadster into space. That's more like an Iron Man move. All right, let's head over now to arstechnica.com. With help from Google, impersonatedbrave.com website pushes malware with a valid TLS certificate. Fauxbrave.com could fool even security savvy people. And it says with help from Google. Yes. Google did not willfully help, like, hey, let's make this cool malware.
They did.
Oh, they did.
No,
okay.
I'm kidding.
in a way, they kind of facilitated this happening. And it's interesting. So it is worth pointing out right from the beginning that none of this is Brave's fault.
Nope.
Brave actually didn't
do anything wrong
at all. None of their servers were affected or anything. So they're just the target of this attack.
If they did anything wrong, it was become popular. Yeah.
So it's a punny code. I see I was like, I got something on my screen. No, it's the little dot over the E.
I thought it was pronounced puny code.
I don't know.
Is it punny code? Okay, well, anyhow.
Puny.
I thought it was puny. Yeah.
Let's go puny.
Let me explain what's happening here, and then we'll make fun of the pronunciation
What's
in a moment.
going on?
So, for many, many years, the domain names that we use on DNS servers only supported ANSI characters, and so it was very English-focused. If you spoke another language or had a different written alphabet in your country...
Too bad.
You
can't go to my internet.
That's exactly how it was for decades.
In our defense, we did make it, and it just seemed the good default
idea
at the time.
Yeah. Make your own internet.
But even for our neighbors, like in Mexico, in Spanish, you have characters like the ñ, the double L, which I've forgotten its name, the Aja, or whatever, however you say that. My apologies to everyone who speaks Spanish.
Our apologies to everyone, honestly.
So, we just didn't have those letters, and so you couldn't get them in domain names. Well, over time, they changed the standards and introduced the ability to support international characters, which opened up the ability to do what I thought was called puny code, because I thought it was a play off of Unicode. Right. But puny, P-U-N-Y, as in tiny. Punycode allowed people to do special characters like accents. And, in the French language, you have many different accents. In languages like Vietnam, you have all sorts of, or Vietnamese, you have all sorts of crazy tags and things that add on to letters. So it creates the ability for people to have those domain names, which totally makes sense. However, attackers took advantage of that, and they registered Brave.com. Now, Brave.com is already taken, and it's used by the Brave browser. The exception here was that the letter E in Brave had a very small dot above it. It's a type of accent, not the accent we're used to, but just a little dot that was incredibly easy to overlook. And because it was a domain name that was not taken, the attackers were able to register the domain, get a valid certificate for it because they owned the domain, and they then cloned the Brave website and made it look identical, except when you click the download button, you would download their malware package instead of the web browser. So they did a perfect clone, taking advantage of these special characters.
And if you're like me, over 40, where you can't tell if that's just a speck of dust on your screen or an actual E, very easy to click on, very easy to make that mistake. So,
and if you stick that into a phishing email, people are going to see some kind of term, and they're used to floating their mouse over it to see what the actual URL is. So you float over it, and that accent is so small at that point, you might not even notice. It looks like it's Brave.com.
Yeah, because that's not even like the big one you would see like in Spanish, like the apostrophe kind of look. It's just a tiniest pixel there.
Yep. And then where Google comes into play is that the attackers then bought Google Ads to promote their website to download Brave.
Fun.
And so you would see a banner for Brave, and if you floated your mouse over it, well, you'd see the AdSense whatever, but if you sifted through that mess, you would see this fake Brave.com and go to it. So that drove traffic to their site and increased the spread of their malware.
And if you're coming from that, from an ad, you might not even know the Brave browser. You might not even know that that's not how it's actually spelled, or that's their logo.
Ooh, must be Brave.
Yeah,
Brave.
Yeah, I've been saying it wrong all these
Sounds
years.
fancier now.
Man, this is the browser I want.
So speaking of things I've been saying wrong, so puny code is the term for those types of
The
symbols and
character
things?
set.
Okay.
The character set that lets you type those. Yep.
I mean, I wouldn't even know. So it's probably like Shift Command X
Yeah.
E or something to type that.
So, ANSI, ANSI, is, I don't know, American National Standards Institute or something like that. But anyhow, they had created a character set back in the 1980s, and it is really just like Latin characters and what we use in English. Unicode extended that and added tons and tons of support. So like UTF-8 is what we see on most Linux distros and other places, databases. So you get the full character set that supports everyone in the world. And then Punycode was designed to kind of make it a little more accessible and easier to use and reduce that set. So
What did you guess ANSI stood for?
isn't it the
American Standards?
I looked it up, so I'm testing
I
you.
said something wrong, right? I said American National Standards Institute, but American and National doesn't make sense. So what does it actually stand
It
for?
is the American National Standards Institute
Oh.
yeah, that's right.
I had it.
Yeah,
of America.
Normally
of
we
America.
need Wes here to get acronyms right.
Yeah, no.
It's standard.
I'm still shocked at how he's just whipping those things off. He
He's
knows that
very
stuff.
good at that.
He is, yeah.
Like, it's kind of freaky.
He's got one of those memories that just locks it down.
Way back in the
I'm the
BBS days,
opposite.
we used to use ANSI codes and stuff to create pseudo graphics.
Yeah.
That was a long time ago.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we've done the IT Pro TV logo with ASCII
Oh yeah.
before for that.
Oh, ASCII's even more basic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, not basic. It was ASCII.
Exactly.
That's a good joke there, Peter. I'm going to give you credit for that one.
I was like, I hope these are comparative things.
Yeah.
25 points to Peter.
Yeah. Judges?
Nailed it.
We're gonna start keeping score.
Yeah.
Nailed it. All right, our next article. Let's see. This is from esecurityplanet.com. FBI. Is this CISA? Do I say it like the CompTIA certification? CISA.
I have no
I would
idea.
assume it was CISA.
CISA.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we learned
Because if
recently.
it was CISO, they say CISO.
We
It's
learned
actually the
recently from the
CISA.
person at CompTIA who is responsible for that certification that you're supposed to say CYSA.
Really?
Yeah.
That's what he said.
Well, that's never going to happen. So
Yeah,
get
no.
real.
We told him he was wrong.
Yeah.
And move on. So FBI and CISA reveal most exploited vulnerabilities. And Don, don't leave us in suspense. What are they?
Oh, I can't disclose that.
Yeah.
This is no. So they actually did a study and they looked at not what are the most dangerous exploits or what are the most effective exploits. They looked at which exploits were being used the most. In other words, the ones you're most likely to be seeing scanning traffic for and so on. And they pulled the top 30 to publish out and let people know. And it's not so much which exploits they were that's important, it's the dates attached to these things. Like when you go through and read the CVE numbers, some of them, actually a lot of them are from 2019. You'll see a few from 2017, 2018, a couple from 2020. And that means that these are exploits that people know about, that patches have already been released and are out there, but people just aren't updating. That's the real takeaway from this article is if you're not updating your crap, it's not going to take long for a hacker to be able to get into your system and compromise your network. But they did kind of divide it up based on products. So there were several that focused on Microsoft Exchange, other ones on Pulse VPN. And so like if you don't run Exchange or you don't run Pulse, you don't care about those. So in the top 30, you might just be able to ignore half of it. But then when you hit a product you do use, like VMware had, I think, just one in the list. But there's a lot of big companies, Fortinet, F5, Microsoft, Atlassian, that all have these exploits that are some of the most commonly exploited. And that means they're used by more than one malware payload, more than one worm for spreading. And these are ones that you absolutely need to have patched in your environment.
Yeah, we talked, I think it was 2 weeks ago when we had, Snehal Antani on, and he talked about the difference between vulnerable and exploitable. And so this is things that we're saying, these are actually exploitable things that can get you in trouble.
Not only are they exploitable, but they are actively being exploited in the wild on a constant basis. So it's not a if, it's a you will be hit by people trying to take advantage of these.
What was the big dog? Did they tell you? Did they give you this is the most exploited vulnerability we have found? Is it in an order or is it just a
Shoot, when I jumped into it, I broke it down by product, so I didn't see.
I think it's gotta
I'll pull
be-
the official.
Oh, hold
document
on.
to see.
Here are the 12 most exploited vulnerabilities announced today.
Yeah, when you look at
Right.
this list,
There
they're
is a
not in
list.
order of date because the dates go back and
Right.
forth.
These
so
are.
it
This
looks
must
like
be
that's
in order
Citrix
of.
one.
All right. So there is a number 1. It is a out of bounds write. Let's see what product this one affects. So they're using a CWE number, which are annoying numbers.
Oh goodness. Not CVE.
And yeah, I don't know why they're doing that. Weakness ID, I guess.
Yeah.
And this is it's because it's a programming language vulnerability. It's a problem in C++ and C. So yeah, not tied to a
So
particular
it's some
product.
yeah.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So now you got to go and figure out, all right, which product actually uses this.
I'm looking at the article. They have this most exploited vulnerabilities. Here are the 12 most exploited vulnerabilities announced today, and they are associated with CVEs and the type as well as the vendor. And the number 1 that they have there is from Citrix, which is CVE 19781, which is an arbitrary code execution. Correct me if I'm wrong, that bad.
Yeah, and Citrix, when I think Citrix, I always think of their remote desktop solutions, but they make a number of load balancers that are out there that are, like SSL or encrypted load balancers. And so that's a critical piece of infrastructure for a lot of data centers.
Yeah, you don't want people taking over that stuff. That could be
Frowned
bad.
upon.
Yeah, a lot of RCEs in this list, which is scary.
Bad. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's from different organizations. So you got one from F5, Mobile Iron, Microsoft, Atlassian, Drupal.
Drupal was in there, yeah.
Yeah, Telerik, another Microsoft.
So this is like the FBI's, top 10 most wanted, but now the computer version
This
of
is
that.
the top 10. Please don't do this.
Yeah.
And the big difference, though, like when you see the top 10 most wanted criminals, it's not like I look at it and say, oh, I'm going to go look for those 10 people.
Yeah.
I wonder how many I can get.
Yeah, where you go, how many of these are in my house right now?
Let me start
basically?
looking at bounties on these guys. Now,
But
maybe
here-
if there were bigger bounties, people would do that.
Maybe. We feel like Dog the Bounty Hunter.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
But looking at this, here's a list of 30 CVEs that are already patched. And so I can look at that and say, all right, I'm going to make sure these are patched on my network. I'm
Yeah.
going to make sure that I've got some kind of scanner that's scanning my network to make sure I'm not vulnerable to
Now,
this.
Don, I know from the very fact that even though that seems easy, nobody really does it. So that must mean it's not as easy as it sounds because I'm not doing it, right? What? Update your stuff.
Yeah.
Update
Yeah.
your stuff.
I wonder if they'll put this in the post office.
Probably
Next
not.
to
that
the
would be
other
fun.
top 10 list.
I saw an 2020 show the other day where these kids at a camp went to the post office to mail a letter and saw their counselor on the top 10 list. He was a murderer. Yeah.
jeez.
Yeah.
Well, if you're going to post these things in the post office, I think you need some kind of visualization, like a mascot for each one. In
Yeah.
fact, I already know who we can get. They need to get whoever it is that makes Olympic mascots because they all look like nightmares.
Yeah,
and so we
frightening.
can just make that, and that's what'll go on the wall.
I haven't even seen the Tokyo one this year. I just haven't been watching much Olympics, but it's up there with the
I think it's
scariness.
hard to watch the Olympics because of it being in Japan. Like the time is so different.
At
You
the
don't
big
wanna watch
things, I
anything.
get notifications on my phone from ESPN and stuff. It's
Yeah.
like, the U.S. women's soccer team didn't advance to the Gold Cup. And then that's the game that's on at night. I'm like, well, I'm not watching this. I
Yeah.
know they lose, so
Oh.
it's disappointing.
Because we got to watch it as replays, right?
Yeah, exactly.
The mascot this year is Mirai Toa,
Sure.
which looks possibly like a cat, maybe rabbit, anime person with big blue eyes.
Okay.
Not as bad as some of the one that had the
Okay.
lightning bolt eyebrows and stuff.
Yeah,
that
there's
one
been
was
some
pretty crazy.
freaky ones in
Yeah.
the past for sure.
Then there was the one with like the slasher mask and a big knife. Yeah.
It was like Chucky dolls.
Yeah,
Everybody
it
had
was
Chucky dolls.
That's more of a winter.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
a winter
yeah,
sport
yeah,
thing.
makes
yeah.
Well, the red really contrasts with the white.
All right, one more article here. We've got in our dough segment this week, so let's roll that.
Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, so
All right, this one is from theregister.com. Scam baiting YouTube channel, Tech Support Scams. Tech Support Scams is the name of the scam baiting YouTube channel. Was taken offline by a tech support scam.
Now that's what I call irony.
Man, oh man. So I guess they were proving how effective these tech support scams were. How do they get tricked on this one? Because this
All
is what
right.
they do.
Don, tell us.
So, this just shows like how hard it is to stay vigilant. And if you're a security professional or a trainer, you're telling people like, hey, you need to look for these red flags. It's still hard to do even when you're on the lookout. And this guy, which I have somehow lost the article. Is his name Jim Brown or something like that?
Jim Browning.
Jim Browning. There we go. So Jim Browning, he has a YouTube channel, which I believe is just youtube.com/Jim Browning, or at least that's where it normally was until it disappeared mysteriously last week. He specializes in setting up these little honeypot systems to draw in tech support scammers. And once he has them, he has a technique where he's able to figure out where they're connecting from and start to gather information about the scammer. And then he uses that against them in some very entertaining YouTube videos. He's posted hundreds of them. If you're ever bored, check out his channel.
Yeah, I've seen him. It's funny.
Jim Browning. Well, he got a notification, and it was from Google, or it appeared to be Google. Attackers were able to use the Google chat system to basically kick out an email that showed as being from a @google.com address, which is kind of a green light. When you look at an email, lots of people have Gmail accounts, but only employees have an @google.com address. So it looked legit, and it was explaining how he had duplicates, what are they called? Brand ID accounts or whatever. It's where you set up your identity in YouTube for your channel. And because of the duplicate AdSense accounts, he was at risk of having an account deleted, which is loosely based on fact, because Google gives away these $100 credits left and right. So if you have more than one account, you can abuse that, and they don't let you do that. So he was worried about losing his 3 million views or subscribers and all of that, his hundreds of videos. And so he connected up with their tech support and started to talk about what he needed to do to fix it. And instead of doing the really obvious things that scammers do, like, well, let me remote into your computer and do this, or I need you to confirm your password, the attackers simply sent him instructions. Hey, we need you to go to this web page, and you're going to click on this. And they even did it in the live chat. You're going to see this, and you'll want to click here. And if you hit delete your channel, don't worry, on the next screen, it'll give you the opportunity to move it. And so he hit delete the channel, and sure enough, on the next screen, it gave him the ability to move it. But they had tricked him into creating a blank brand ID, which then copied over, and he lost his entire channel. The next phase of the attack was to give control of the original channel to the attacker, and that's when he figured out it was a scam. So he had already deleted his own channel, and he did it himself, which shows how sophisticated these attackers are. They knew every screen, every prompt, and had a way to explain it. And the attacker was basically copying and pasting a script, and it got him. But it finally led him to a Google form where the URL wasn't quite right. He could spot that, and it asked for his password. And the moment he saw that, he knew it. He knew he got caught. So fortunately, and this is kudos to him, he switched to education mode. And he started gathering all the information he could, and he put out a video just yesterday, as of the filming of this, where he actually walks through the whole process, exactly how he was scammed. He highlights all the stuff, so it's a great learning opportunity.
Wow.
So I've got a chart here when I go to his homepage, which is interesting. I don't know if I just get this chart because I have a plugin installed called TubeBuddy on YouTube, but it shows me his stats, and it shows the number of views gained each day, and it averages about 300,000 or so. If you go back a couple weeks, it's about 150,000. Then there's a 6-day period where it flatlines. But now he's averaging 974,000 views a day. So not the worst thing. Yeah, not the worst thing for the guy. And that's the point, Don, I think that you made, is that he turned it into a positive of, I'm going to use this because it could be extremely embarrassing for, well, I'm sure he was embarrassed, but to say, nope, well, let's capitalize on this. It goes with the brand.
He did retain control of the account. I mean, the channel was deleted, but he never gave out the credentials to his account. Even had he done that, he had two-factor authentication turned on, so the attacker wouldn't have been able to use it to get in, although they had a lot of other information where they potentially could have done a reset of 2FA. But he was able to contact Google tech support, and it took, I thought he said 4 days to get the channel restored, which honestly, that's the fastest I've ever heard Google respond to anything.
Well, so, when you have over 3 million subscribers, I guess you get a phone number.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting to me that his first thought wasn't, okay, I've received something that looks like it's legitimately from Google saying that I'm in danger, blah, blah, blah. Let me call them. Let me contact them straight to Google. I know the number I'm dialing is Google. I know the email contact is Google. Yeah. It's a support number. I mean, that's one of the basic things we tell people, that if a scammer contacts you and says, I'm from Microsoft, they don't contact you. You hang up and you call back. And if Microsoft really has a problem and they need to talk to you, they'll be like, oh, yeah, we know about this. Let's get this fixed.
Yeah, he explains in the video how he initially fell for it.
Yeah.
And he said part of this was coincidence. Like he had just set up an additional brand ID the day before.
So they happened.
And this came along, and he said that was a
Kind of
coincidence.
a perfect storm.
But it was kind of already in his mind.
Yeah.
And then when he was contacted, the email address that was used was chatno-reply@google.com.
Which is something he's gotten emails from. Yeah.
I'm sure.
And the link for support was a Google Chat link. So it was all in the Google ecosystem.
So you
and
can't
so that's
trust
how he fell for it.
links.
Yeah, no, that's the
ever.
point. Yeah, they can be disguised, but he's got it back. So
Yeah, well,
that's
good for him.
But
I'm glad to hear it.
I wonder though, and I have not watched that video following up, and I wonder
It's
if he knows.
20 minutes. It's worth it to watch.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Does he know? Is it someone that he has pissed off before by
It has to
exposing
be.
them?
No, so he actually mentioned in there because he did actually start to chat with the
Oh,
the
right, because
scammer
the
towards
end game
end.
wasn't them deleting his channel. It was to try to gain control of it. Right?
And he said that he believes that they've just been going through. The guy said he's been doing it for 3 years. So they've just been going through trying to seize channels, and then
Oh, so he
basically
talked to
steal-
him after he knew it was a scam, and the guy was actually forthcoming with him. That's
Yeah.
interesting.
Nice.
Yeah, it was strange, but that happens.
Hey,
I'll be damned.
we get to learn from it. So do that. Watch that video. Learn from it.
I will. Thank you.
And knowing is half the battle.
Yeah. All right. A couple things I want to let you know about. We've got a couple of webinars coming up. There's one happening today, Thursday, August 5th, How Apprenticeships Help Employees and Employers. That's with Amy Cardell from CompTIA and our very own Ronnie Wong. So we're going to be doing that at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. Don't worry if you're watching this after that, because it will be archived, and you'll be able to check it out at itpro.tv/webinars. And then we've got the next one coming up Thursday, August 19th. Is your security battle tested? Proving your security works the way you want it to, with Ben Fink. So that will be taking place on, like I said, Thursday, August 19th, 2 p.m. Eastern Time. Check those out, itpro.tv/webinars. And then head over to technado.com, and you can send us that viewer mail and get yourself a shirt when we read your mail on the old podcast here. And hit the big orange button up in the corner that says sponsored by IT Pro TV, and you can get a 30% off coupon code for the lifetime of your personal subscription to IT Pro TV. And you can also request a team trial if you have a team and want to find all the great features like the Pro Portal that are available to teams at IT Pro TV. So check us out, technado.com. Also, a few of us are going to be out in Las Vegas next week for the HIMSS conference, Healthcare IT show. So if you happen to work in that field and you're going to be out there, definitely stop by, say hi. We'll be at booth C606. I will be there, and so, yeah, I'll sign your badge or something. And then you'll have to go get a new badge because I ruined your badge.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. But yeah, we'd love to meet you and shake your hand. And I'll tell you what, if you come over and say you saw us on Technado, we'll give you a Technado t-shirt there as well. I'm just giving them away. We're just giving them away.
Hit him with a dirty sock while you're there.
If you do that, you get 2 t-shirts.
There you
Bonus
see.
points.
Bag full, or sock full of coins.
Yeah. Then you get to go to jail because that's assault.
2 t-shirts, a sticker, and prison.
Yeah, that's right. You get to talk about the lovely people you
This
met
makes me think of
in
the
the
guy
county
from-
lockup.
The guy from Parks and Rec. Jail. You go
Yeah,
straight to jail. Yeah.
Straight to jail.
Surprisingly, jail. Still jail.
Hit Peter with a sock full of coin, straight to jail.
All right, everybody. Thanks, guys. And we'll see you next week right here on Technado with Don Pizzette.